Well, here we are, Sherry, at the beginning of Game 2 in this best 2 out of 3 final with Gord Masson and Jan Goodfellow in the foreground here, and Dwight Berg and Ruth Mary Hollis back there on that camera angle. And this is Pickleball, if you're just tuning us in. If you've never heard about pickleball, it's a very interesting sport which involves, obviously, a ball like that, hard plastic, and 2 players on each side. This is the doubles of the Group B of the Medicine Hat Senior Services Showdown in the Hat second annual tournament. And we have some rules that we might want to go over here. Now, it looks like Gord Masson is going to be serving, so he will be allowed to serve as long as he's making points. If he makes a fault, he will lose his serve. He just made a point there as Ruth Mary hit it into the net. Was
unable to return the ball. So now Gord will be switching to the opposite side.
Right.
The first server always starts on the right-hand side, and as you make points, you alternate with your partner, going then to the left and back to the right, and then when you lose your serve or opportunity to make points, then your partner, whichever side they happen to be on, will be player number 2.
Right.
So we have kind of an interesting way that we keep our
scores. She is server number 2 now.
Yes, she is.
She's the second server. She's checking that with the referee right now. There is a referee on the sideline of all our championship matches, and she just checked with the referee to make sure she was in her correct position, because if she's not, then she loses her serve or faults, as we say.
Right.
You get the same sort of thing in tennis. Now, they both had a chance at serving, and now it's moved over to Dwight. He's server number 1.
And once again, in that right-hand position, he is the first server, returning the ball. Ruth Mary is, unfortunately, just hit the net there.
So now
it goes to Ruth Mary as a second server.
It's a second server. And she has to stand there and serve diagonally across, just like ping pong, to that opponent. After it comes back, and that's one of the rules, it has to hit on the ground first for Gordon or Jan to return it, and then it has to, on the return serve, they have to let it hit once, and then on the ground, and then anything goes. They can then hit it in the air or volley,
if they wish,
or they can wait and let it drop down.
Exactly. So what it's called an air ball if it is hit before it was supposed to be, and so everybody is kind of on the lookout for making sure, yes, I didn't hit it before I was supposed to, when I should have been letting it drop.
One thing I have found in pickleball, more so than when I used to play tennis, is there's a lot of communication between you and your partner.
And if there isn't, you run into problems.
That's
so it's a very positive thing to keep up, is that constant flow. Gord is so good at this. He runs the whole game, and it's always you, me, me, and it keeps it very clear, because when you have a shot down the middle, that is usually a very good shot, because sometimes neither one of the players will be sure if they should be getting it. So if you clarify right off the bat, it's mine, your partner steps aside and lets you take it. Otherwise, you can have either the shot that just blows down the middle and nobody does anything, or both of you clashing paddles together because you're both attempting to hit that ball at the same time, and that usually doesn't work out that well.
I just noticed that
beautiful shot.
That Ruth Mary had served that. The first serve, she hit the net, and then it dropped into the court where she was trying to get. That's called a let serve. And so she gets to reserve that over again. However, if it had hit the net and dropped into that kitchen zone or non-volley zone that we talked about earlier, then it would have been a loss of serve.
Exactly.
And here's what they're calling dinking, and that's just gently getting it over the net.
And sort of waiting for that opportunity to slam it. And you saw Gordon snuck in a great slam.
Yeah.
Ruth Mary was able to
return the first one, but not the second one.
And that's what everybody is looking for, just that opportunity to really get a tough drill shot, particularly when you have both of the opponent players right up at the net. You want to just slam it by them. They don't have any opportunity then to get that. It's a tough return.
That's right. The higher up, and pickleball, like tennis, have rankings from 5.0 is the top ranking, all the way down to 0.5.
Right.
That would be just a beginner, okay? These folks would be somewhere between 3.0 and 3.5 in terms of their ranking. The higher up the ranking, the more skills they have to return either slam shots or drop shots or lob shots or whatever kind of shots. And that's one of the things that make a difference. There's a big lob by Jan there that just, I believe it missed, yeah.
Yeah,
it went too far and beyond the baseline, which is the line from which they serve. There goes Ruth Mary serving across court again, and Dwight returning it. Here they go, and she slams it.
Yeah.
And she slams it again, and Ruth Mary, just about got it back over there into the net.
Good attempt.
So now Dwight gets to serve. As we mentioned before, there are 2 serves per side. As long as one person is scoring points, then they keep the ball and just alternate the courts.
This is a
That's
very
a point.
Yes, and this is a
point
very
for Dwight and Ruth Mary.
Ruth Mary, excellent, Tom. I was going to say that this is a very friendly game in that you are the side that's receiving that ball is the one that's going to call whether the ball has gone outside or if it stayed within, hit the line. They get to make the call.
Right.
And even when we have a referee, which is only during this tournament, that the referee generally is really just watching the pickleball, the kitchen line, and the line closest to her.
To her in this particular case, yeah.
But on the whole, you just...
it's a friendly game, yeah.
Yeah,
and while we play, throughout the season, and we do play down at these courts 5 days a week, and a couple of evenings.
Yes.
And it's through the Medicine Hat Senior Services Club that we do that. Membership is open to people who are 50 plus. And as you mentioned before, age is no factor when you're playing pickleball. Now there's a case in point. We can see on the video that that ball was out, okay? Now, but you just mentioned that those 2 that we see on the screen right now would be the ones who would call whether it was out or in.
Absolutely.
And they have the final say.
Exactly.
The opposition may question the referee. Did you see it, referee? If the referee saw it, she would say, yes, it was in to me, or it was out to me, or whatever, things like that. But right now, it looked like they thought it was in because they just switched servers there.
Right.
And there goes Dwight.
One of the interesting things that I noticed in play, Tom, I'm sure you do too, is a clear way to find out if it hit the line is a lot of times it'll get a skid when it hits the paint line, and it will react differently than if it just hit the regular concrete area. So that's one of the ways that I often will say, that definitely must have hit the line because it had that really funny just skid to the ball. Oh, just skimmed the net. That's another wonderful shot if you can do that. Great smash by Ruth Mary there. That's
right. And the opportunity to smash it like that, some people think that that's the whole game. Just keep hitting, just keep hitting. But as you can see in this particular match, if what all the players are trying to do is get to that net, and you just saw a beautiful play by Gord and Jan. They are keeping their opposition at the back of the court.
Absolutely.
And
holding them there.
As you can imagine, the farther back you are, the lower that ball is going to be, which makes it more difficult to return.
Particularly if they go to your feet, which is certainly where they're going to be aiming because that's a difficult scoop shot.
Right. Okay, we're in the middle of this play, and things are going extremely well. Once in a while there are timeouts called, and I'm surprised we haven't seen one given the heat that's out there on that court today. You can call a timeout for whatever reason you want.
Sometimes just to regroup, or if you're tired, or need to get your strategy re-looked at.
We were just in a timeout has been called, and this is a rule that each side is allowed 2 one-minute timeouts. We're back into the swing of things here after that timeout, with Ruth Mary serving to Gord Masson. And she just lost her serve, so it goes back over to this other side. Sherry, just explain a little bit about the timeouts. How does that work?
So each player is allowed a 1-minute timeout. So each side gets a total of 2 possible timeouts. And They're for 1 minute each. The players will indicate to the ref that they want to have a timeout, and each player will then lay their paddle down with the serving player covering the pickleball so that everybody knows when play resumes, that's who's going to be serving the ball.
Right.
And the referee is also allowed to call a timeout if they feel that it'd be a good time to have a water break and everybody just needs a period to regroup. So.
Right. Yeah, the referee will only call, as far as I know, the referee will only call a timeout in cases of extreme heat and stuff like that. Because it is important, of course, with any sport where you are perspiring a lot, and when it's hot in direct sun, etc., your body is using up fluids like crazy. So it is important, and the referee is sort of a guardian of that, if you will.
Absolutely.
There are, by the way, 10-minute timeouts, and that's for an injury timeout. If one of these players happen to trip and fall, they are allowed up to 10 minutes to recover.
Oh, that's very interesting.
That allows them, and believe it or not, I was in a tournament one time, and there were two 80-plus gentlemen playing, and one of them, I don't know whether he felt a little faint or whatever, but he did go down, his knee kind of buckled, and he went down on the ground, and so they called a timeout, and everyone was thinking, well, they're 80-plus years old, are they going to come back? Sure enough, they came back and they won their division,
Wow.
Just amazing, but they took about a 5-minute timeout, but they are allowed up to 10 minutes to do that.
Okay.
And the referee is the one that would, of course, keep the timing on that particular thing, but it's up to whatever. It's very important when you're playing a sport like this or tennis or anything else. If you're not feeling well or if you injure yourself, take the time to sit down, relax, because as soon as you injure yourself, whether it's just a simple scrape or whether you've actually broken something, and keep in mind, none of us are 25 anymore. Well, some of the viewers might be.
Right.
In this particular thing here, you're not, your bones are not as supple, shall we say, as they used to be, and they might break. So take the time to be cognizant of the fact that you want your body to relax. The adrenaline goes in these games. The adrenaline's really, really high, so it's going to cover any superficial injury. So you take the time to relax, and then you can find out whether or not you're really hurt. So that's the advantage of having a 10-minute timeout.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I'm just noticing as Tom and I speak about this is both Jan and Gord have a brace on their knee. And I have noticed that many times in the games that players will have anything from back braces, knee braces, elbow braces, whatever they need to support them to make the game easier for them and less likely that they will be injured.
They have an injury. My wife worries about me when I play this thing, but I wear a wristband, which gives me a little extra strength in my right wrist. I also have a sweatband on my left wrist, which is nice and tight, so it sort of serves a double purpose. But unbeknownst to most players who play with me, I have a cummerbund, shall we say, around my waist, hidden by my shorts and t-shirt, of course. That helps my back. It supports my back, and I can play forever that way.
Oh, that's wonderful. And whatever it takes, because most people who play pickleball say they're addicted, and I'm certainly one of them. It's one of those type of sports that once you get going on it, you are very keen to play it as often as you're able.
And you want to play for 4 or 5 hours too.
If you have the durability.
The hotter it gets, the longer or the shorter you're going to play, unless you're 25 years old.
Yes.
And we have some of those players coming up, so that's kind of interesting. This is a very good match. This is the second game of this best 2 out of 3. The first game was won by Gord Masson and Jan Goodfellow, right there. And as we mentioned, in case you're just tuning us in, all 4 players here are from the Medicine Hat Senior Services Pickleball Club. So nice to see them in the final. There were people from Calgary and Red Deer and Lethbridge, etc., who came to this tournament.
Victoria, Moose Jaw.
Exactly, Moose Jaw. I didn't know that.
Yes,
wow,
I believe so.
Yeah, that's So as we mentioned, it's a well
attended. I believe that we had 70 participants.
Yes.
in that area. So that's very nice to see.
Yeah.
That kind of participation. And I was also going to mention, as last year was our first year, we certainly, I think, improved the tournament so much this year. We had over 50 volunteers from our club and from without, I believe, who were there to lend services for whatever need be done, from refereeing, baking, setting up the courts, taking down the courts.
We even had one gentleman have a blower, which he could blow off sticks and stuff. When the wind blows, see those beautiful trees in the background there? They drop little twigs and leaves and stuff like that. So we always want to have a nice clean court. Elton was very kind to use his blower for that. By the way, I just want to mention something the next time we see somebody serving about the serve and how there's a certain way you can serve. And you've probably noticed that the serves are not like tennis, they're not overhand, etc.
Absolutely.
They are underhand. And now, Ruth Mary is about to serve. Oh, twice is just blocking our view here, but it's an underhand serve where the top of the racket, which is the top being the part that is not the handle, let's say the opposite end of the handle, the top of the racket has to be below your wrist when the ball strikes the paddle. Okay, so if it's below your wrist also then has to be below your waist. Gordon does a backhand serve here, but it still makes it so. The head of his racket is below his wrist and his wrist was below his waist. That's a rule. If you exceed that rule, that is a fault. Okay? So, like anything else, if you make a mistake, if the ball goes out or you make a mistake and Jan's going to serve here, if she happens to step on that baseline, which that's very close from this angle, that would have been a fault. Now, the referee gets to call those faults. If the opposition happens to see that she crosses that baseline on her serve, they can mention to the referee, draw it to their attention. They cannot make the call themselves because they're 44 feet away from that. You know,
and
so
it's amazing how your perspective is altered when you're that far away. So
in addition to that, looking through that net, you're going to
nice lob.
Yeah, that was a beautiful lob. And that's the other kind of things what we can talk about are lob shots, straight ground stroke shots, dink shots. We mentioned those.
Yes.
Volleys, of course. Slams and dinks. Dinks are the opposite to slam, shall we say. Drop shots, etc. Now there goes Dwight. Beautiful example of how the serve should be done in terms of keeping that head of the racket below the wrist and the wrist below the waist. Right. The waist, by the way, in pickleball is defined as wherever your belly button is. So if you're high-waisted, then you've got a real advantage.
Okay.
Here goes Ruth Mary.
Okay.
Boom, there's her. Nice serve, but she hit the wrong side of the court. She has to get it into that quarter, and she did not, apparently, because she just lost her serve. So.
Right. And if it had hit the line, that would have still been acceptable on her serve. So it's only when it actually goes on the opposite side that you would lose your serve.
That's correct.
If when you
she hit the center line there, yeah.
That's right. And if on your serve you do hit the kitchen line, though, then you would lose it. Lose your serve.
The kitchen line there is part of the kitchen, so you can't hit that on your serve. Here goes Jan.
Very good serve there.
Now, what else can you do with this ball? You don't just have to hit it. You can put spins on it.
Oh.
And a lot of times that really, really works well. That game is over.
Okay.
They're shaking their hands. That looks like the match is over. Yes, it is. And the winners, with a big hug like that. Now, obviously, Jan Goodfellow and Gord Masson have won the Group B championships.
Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Tom.
Well, thank you, Sherry, for sparkling commentary.
Oh.